Kuna wifi. Nakuja, nakuja. Haifanyi. Sawa, sawa. Nimeona inafikia mbali sana. Inaitwa phase 1. Okay. Sawa, tutafute tuone basi. Sawa.
Yes. Good morning too.
Kwa simu anasemaje? Ofisi yake ndio hii. Ofisi yake ndio hii, tukijafika mahali. Tutafute kwa simu. going to weka kwa hiyo ile kibu no, wewe in general you can take these two analysis to the border. Yes. This is probably nice. Login for eLearning. How I share the na wako tu 100 huko, ama ukuja utumie laptop yangu meanwhile. Wenye wako kwa wenye wako, acha ni refresh nione.
Itabidi ukuje utumie hii yangu. Kuna something you want to share ama?
Yeah, the notes ziko tu online, but I can still just teach for now, alafu niwaambie I will share them. Sababu sasa basi namaanisha niende kwa net ni download hizo notes. But sasa sitashare screen yako, sitakuwa nimesoma. Maybe after this class nitarudi nikae. Sasa wasimu wewe ni mwanafunzi tuingie. Hata tunaweza tu basi wapea kazi tuanze class.
No, unaweza kuendelea tu na hii.
Sasa tunatafute hizo notes. Zilikuwa kwa simu.
Acha nijaribu nione kama itapika. Nimeona umejoin na simu ama na nini?
Kama niko. Umeniona? Sasa kama unaniona ndani na sijioni, ama mimi niendelee tu kuongea.
Ndio tu acha nijaribu tena.
Imelog out.
Nijaribu tena mara ya mwisho nione. Kama kifanya hii link ingine. No, acha tu nijaribu another option.
Niliwaambia wakatoka tukarudi class the last 1 hour. Wakaenda kufanya group meets.
Yes.
there is a small issue on transition that we are fixing. So people should just be patient. I can see only 100 of us are logged in. Are people experiencing a problem? You are okay with the joining? How many are we in class? Yes. Hello? One of these small number. Did you reach out to the other classes? No problem. So I think let us just be patient. If people are in the hotspots, so we shall just fix the problem.
What I can do, let me create another one.
Another link.
Another link. Nataka tu niwape link moja.
Uwapee hapo kwa darasa kwamba move to
Ni
this.
moja tu. Ngoja tu kidogo nikupe alafu waambie move to this.
Na sasa si tungewatumia
nakutumia link ya pili.
Tungewawekea link hapo kwamba move to this link.
Nakutumia tu saa hii.
But tujaribu kwanza sisi
kwanza ya tuwape ya exactly.
Mmoja amesema tunapewa, kila mtu anasukuma tu kwa wala atujue nini.
Nikutumia ingine tu saa hii. Okay. Ambie watumie hiyo link tu. Ambie atumie link tu. Link 1, mwambie atumie link 1. In fact, yes, yeah.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
Watumie link 1. No, link 1 na kutumia ingine. Acha nikutumie. No, whatever I shared earlier on, tell them to use link 1. Let me forward to you again. Link 2 nimecancel. Let me forward to you. Link 1 haina passcode. It's just a direct YouTube.
Sasa wote tu waingie na link 1.
Yeah.
Na mimi
wewe nataka nikutumia.
Na nikiingia tu na hii for example.
Nataka nikutumia hapo saa hii. So that you can join as a lecturer. Just saa hii tu na kutumia. Hiyo nimekutumia, hiyo ni kama mwanafunzi cannot talk. Hiyo ni cannot talk. Hata sijui nikawa nanisikia saa hii. Ngoja ni join hiyo link tu nione. Hiyo link tu I think wanafaa wanisikie. Link 2. So not link 2. Link 2. You see, let them use link 1. Let them yeah. Let them use link 1. Let me share with you link 2. Then link 2 taka tujaribu kama tunaweza tuka So I want to share with you. Login na laptop yako sasa. Sasa login na laptop yako. Okay, work. Iko sawa. Daktari jaribu kuongea tuone.
Hello, students. I think we can now start. It is 40 past, but it was worth the wait. And I want to thank the ODEL team, the Open Distance and Learning team, for having worked on the transition. We are now not using Zoom. The university has transitioned, and I'm happy that we can now use a different link. This will be our permanent link. We shall now not change again. So I want to use this link every Tuesday at 8 a.m. in the morning. So I want to share the notes from where we had reached, but if we can't use the notes, then I will still use my phone to teach, but I know it will still be communicated. So I'm sharing our notes, and now I'm going to the next topic, which is topic 2, that is educational psychology. I want to skip the branches of educational psychology because we did it as groups. Unfortunately, most of us did not form the groups, and therefore it became very difficult for me to form the group forums because I know we are around 2,000 students, and yet we only had around 60 groups. So fortunately, after the posting, many other groups came in, but still we are not full house. You can see that from the post that I sent to you, we are still at 1720, and this is a class of 2,200 students. So we are still missing 500 students. So we still have groups of around 500 students that have not yet joined. So I will leave out that subsection. I know you all looked at the different branches of psychology. The only thing I want to maybe just refresh a bit is that all these branches that I gave you are what we call applied psychology, because you apply the knowledge in the day-to-day human life. So, for example, when we talk about a branch like educational psychology, which is part of these branches, we are saying we will acquire knowledge on educational psychology this semester, and then we shall use this particular knowledge to change the learning behavior of the students. So all these different disciplines are applied in our day-to-day lives. That is why I gave you an assignment and I said in groups of 20, look at all these different branches of psychology, of studies of the mind and behavior, and then be able to pick out what you feel is the best applicable within our current circumstances, then justify why. For example, if your group picked on educational psychology, you justify. And I'm happy many groups sent to me, to my WhatsApp, but that was not the intention. The intention was that we send it into the group forums online in our portal, in our learning portal, so that from the group forums, I can visit your forum and then I award you a mark from your group forum. So I'll still insist that within this week, you find time and work on your document, and when you post it into your group forum, you type the 20 names for that group. So you wait until I now assign the groups. So I will assign the groups from group 1 to group 90, because at this point we are almost at 90, or to group 100. So if you are group 100, when you go to our learning portal, our e-learning portal, you will find the breakout groups for psychology 2110. Then you will find, for example, group 70. So it is only in group 70 that group 70 posts their answers. Then next week, when we have a session again, when I give you any other task, and it is supposed to be a group task, you simply post to the group that is assigned as per your number. So group 1, group 5, I'll be expecting you to post your feedback to the group number that I will have assigned you. So I'm hoping that by the end of today, class reps will assist me to ensure that there is no one left behind, because once we start group forums, they will hold up to the end of the semester. So these branches, I know after reading about them, after understanding them, after writing and giving me that this is, according to us, this is the best, the content of the rest. So that is a way of revising. So that is why I don't want to repeat the knowledge on that, but I just want to pick out one that directly affects us and one that is making the title of this course, and that is educational psychology. That as students doing education, students preparing to become teachers, educational psychology is normally devoted to the study of how students learn in educational settings, especially schools, and the effectiveness of these educational interventions. So, according to educational psychology, we actually focus on several factors that influence the learning processes in a classroom setting. We also focus on assessing the skills and the intellectual potential of the students and also evaluating their performance. So at the end of this particular course, we then expect you to have become educational psychologists so that you will be able to overcome the learning difficulties. You will apply the knowledge of educational psychology to overcome any learning difficulties for the learners. So let us now move to today's session. We shall take a while there. If there is anyone experiencing a problem, you can always ask your colleagues because many joined immediately the link was given. For those who are still trying to join, please do not use link 2. Just use link 1 alone, link 1 that does not have a password, and that will be very easy for you. So we now define educational psychology, which is our core unit, our core mandate in this particular course, that it is just a branch of psychology. It's a branch of the study of the mind, but here we are dealing with understanding the learners and attempting to make them learn better by applying the knowledge that we shall have gotten. So it is actually a study of how we learn that is based on several functions. So the knowledge on educational psychology functions in several ways, and these functions are what will lead us to its relevance in class. So first of all, educational psychology functions to develop and evaluate theories or assumptions of human motivation, development, learning, and instruction. So a theory is a set of assumptions. There is an assumption that learners learn better in a quiet environment. That is a theory. There is an assumption that learners learn better when they use teaching aids, when they use life examples or life objects. That is a theory. So we have learned several theories in year 1, semester 1 and 2, and therefore we want to say that the main function of educational psychology is to evaluate whether these theories work or not, and also to develop. Once you are an educational psychologist, you can study other people and come up with assumptions about what can motivate learners, what can develop learning, and what can be the best way to give instructions in a classroom. Then we also have another purpose where the knowledge of educational psychology examines and proposes modification of educational practices. That as we teach over time, we realize that things change, circumstances change, situations change, and therefore, as teachers, we are empowered with this knowledge of educational psychology to modify practices that would be the best to the students. And we can never stop using technology as an example. That we can still use technology to bring to life learning processes. that you can still use animations, you can still use YouTube, you can still use even TikTok, you can use anything that is technologically advanced to teach. So we can modify our classroom setup to become technological, using devices, using recording devices to just improve. Then we also have educational psychology as having a function of evaluating the teaching methodology in the light of the psychological theories. So I want to repeat that we have very many theories which we are going to learn in the next 9 weeks. This is our second week. So we now have around 8 weeks left. So we will want to evaluate the teaching methodology based on the theories, on the psychological theories that we have learned. And we shall be learning them. So we shall evaluate, really, is it possible that learners can use Piaget's theory better? Is it possible that Albert Bandura's theory, that social learning theory, is the best? So we shall be able to look at the assumptions of a learning environment and whether that particular assumption can still hold water or if it has been overtaken by time. Then we also want to say educational psychology provides several scientific approaches to research with regard to psychological aspects. So you are able to do some research so that we come up with objective conclusions about why students, for example, become restless and burn the schools. What is this that makes the learners become demotivated when they were really motivated in their Form 1? What would make the learners hate a teacher who was their lovebird or their darling in Form 1? What is this that changes? So we want to do some systematic study, what we are calling scientific approaches, so that we are able to look at the aspects of education and provide better aspects that would improve the classroom learning processes. Then we also have it functioning as a process through which the teacher can understand, predict, and control behavior in a learning environment. So through educational psychology, we shall be able to understand factors that cause learning, be able to predict factors that can either cause learning or break learning. We can also be able then, having understood and having the ability to predict, we can then control learning behavior in a class or among our learners. We simply put controls in place and learning takes place. We simply remove the controls and learning stops taking place. Then the last major functional area of the educational psychology, which is the learner, the learning process, and the learning situation, is actually a function of educational psychology. So through educational psychology, we will be able to capture the 3 major components of learning. 1, the learner, who is the principal component. 2, the learning process, the second component. 3, the learning situation. So what are we saying here? Through educational psychology, we shall be able to understand anything possible that can cause a learner to learn. And we are going to look at learning process in our 3rd week, next week. We are going to look at learning processes. In our 4th week, we shall look at the processing, the information processing theory, how human beings process information. And in another session, we shall be looking at different learning situations. So then it calls, without thinking, that then education psychology is a very important course for a teacher professional. If that is what education functions to achieve, then it means there is no escape for a teacher. Anyone who wants to teach, in other words, anyone who wants to cause learning to take place, must then take educational psychology as a course unit in their training, so that at the end of the day, they understand the following. One, we shall be able to understand the behavior of different children at different stages of development. We are going to look at that. So that at Form 1, at grade 10, those who will go to junior school, at grade 8, you are able to understand those learners and their learning needs. Those who will be doing Form 4, you are able to understand those 19-year-olds, those 18-year-olds, and the problems of development at late adolescence. So you should be able to navigate through grade 8, grade 9, senior school, up to Form 3. Then you should also be able to understand even university level, because we say you cannot stop teaching at high school. Once in a while, you might navigate to the higher academic institutions. Then the second importance is that when a teacher has now command in educational psychology, in other words, studying the learning behavior based on the human mind, you will be able to understand learners' problems and find solutions to them. We are going to look at many situations where the solution lies with the teacher. Every solution about learning lies with the teacher. Why? While it is the student who is learning, it is the teacher who is manipulating the learning environment. So we all need to understand the learner's problems and provide possible solutions to learners' problems. We shall be learning about Sigmund Freud psychoanalytic stages, and we shall want to understand at what level does upbringing cause indiscipline in school. So that as a teacher, you are not looking at a noise maker and looking at this child who is always making noise as an indisciplined student. No. That you will be able to understand the problems based on the knowledge that we shall cover in the next few weeks, and be able to provide a solution instead of serving this particular learner with a suspension letter. How many of us were put together on assembly, bundled together as Form 4S, punished and told to kneel on assembly, just because the teacher did not take time to understand the problem that lay behind certain activities in that Form 4As. So as professionals, we may not expect so much of such putting learners together, mistaking their problems, and punishing them en masse. Then we also say the teachers will be able, with the knowledge, to choose the best teaching methods to different subjects, to different courses, and also as dictated by maturation trends in the children. So how are you going to teach Form 1s vis-a-vis Form 4s when you are, for example, for the mathematics students, when you are handling calculus 1, calculus 2? How are you going to handle the Form 1 class as a Kiswahili teacher when you are teaching types of nouns, aina za nomino? Then you want to start teaching aina za nomino by talking about vivumishi, vimilikishi, or in English, they are now talking about adjectives. Adjectives of time. Before you even start talking about types of nouns. So you will be able to choose the best teaching methods to teach different subjects at different levels using the knowledge of educational psychology, because educational psychology, we have said, functions to tell us the best learning environment for every learning process to take place. Then, through the knowledge of educational psychology as a teacher, you will be guided to select the most suitable learning materials, the most suitable learning aids for learners at different stages of development. So we want to look at the environment where you will teach. If you are in Bungoma, for example, are you going to teach about coconuts, giving examples maybe of coconuts, maybe or not coconuts really? You are teaching geography in Kenya. Then you are talking about cocoa growing. You are also talking about very, very unique Western-based examples. So how suitable are your examples? If you are teaching the dicotyledon, the monocotyledon, and would you go very far? So educational psychology is going to make us simplify our learning processes based on available and suitable materials. For the junior schools,
You are currently the only person in this conference.
so we want to look at prediction as being a strength of a trained teacher. Are you able to predict the learning behavior of the learner?
Just hold on. The internet, they're trying to connect. Kitu nifanya ku present. Up your notes.
Sorry, we can continue. So with the educational psychology, we can then understand and attempt to explain the learner's behavior. Then also use the different theories to motivate the learners, to instill values, to instill good habits, and also to correct unacceptable behavior. So we are going to look at forms of punishment, forms of intellectual development, and be able to motivate the learners using the theories that we shall have learned. So now at this particular point, let us then look at learning. So what is learning? So we said last week that behavior is anything including learning. So when you are learning, you are behaving, and the mind is causing you to learn. So I want us to look at the definition of learning. And I want to look at the definition of learning based on two different aspects. That learning mainly involves changing and adapting to new ways of behavior. It is changing, not just changing, changing and adapting. And I want us to use classroom learning behavior. So if learning involves changing, then it means it changes the learner from what they did not know to what they currently know. And that once they learn something and they know it, they adapt to the new operations of what they have known. So for learning to have occurred then, it has to be a relatively permanent change in behavior, which we can easily trace to experience and practice. So what am I saying here? In agriculture, if you want to know that the learner has known different types of agriculture, you need to look at the learner being able to name, first of all, to appreciate and name, mention the types of agriculture. Then be able to use the different types for better production. So those are now the new ways of behavior. So in learning, the new ways of behavior is when we adjust from the unknown to the known. We did not know, and now we know. The learners did not know, and they now know. And it has to be relatively permanent. What are we saying here? That this knowledge should be revisited by the learner whenever it is needed. So for example, we are just learning types of learning in class. I expect that my second year class should be able to understand the functions of educational psychology. Not just to understand them, to remember at least one or two of those functions. Not just to remember, to actually change in practice and be able to make the learners understand. Remember, we are going to be in our classes in May 2026. We should be able to apply the knowledge learned or acquired in educational psychology to our classroom situations and be able to understand these learners based on the knowledge that we have acquired. So we want to repeat that learning is not just a change. It is a relatively permanent change. And that this change does not just occur. It occurred because of some experience and practice. So, especially our Bachelor of Education Science students, you are practical based in nature. All your subjects call for experimentation. So for the learners to be able to adapt and do titration, You must avail the apparatus to the learners and have the learners use those apparatus and do the titration themselves. So you give guidance, then the learners experience, and then they practice. And at the end of the day, they become a changed science student because of practice. And to the rest of us, we need to give exercises so that once something is learned, the student exhibits a behavior that indicates that learning actually occurred, that a permanent change occurred. The learner should always get something correct in your exam to show that learning has taken place. So secondly, I'll tell you about learning in two ways. First, I've told you that learning involves changing and that the change should be permanent, relatively permanent. Then second, I'm saying learning is a process. It does not occur overnight. Learning is a process of acquiring attitudes, values, skills, and knowledge. So there are all these four components together. So the learner does not just know how to draw diagrams in your course. The learner also knows how to correctly draw the diagrams. It's not just about the map of Kenya, no. It is about the position where Lake Victoria is. Is it correctly done? It's about the position where the Indian Ocean is. When we give an example of the early childhood education, it is not about just writing letter A. It is about how correctly this letter A and where the tail faces. So at the end of the day, for the ECD category of learners, we really need to have them learn and acquire skills of how to write correctly. Then as we advance to senior school, the category of graduates handling learners at senior school, we are then looking at whether the learner correctly exhibits correct letter writing, and whether the learner has knowledge on how to connect using a good, maybe the English students would talk about conjunctions. Is it just a sentence or is it a good sentence? So the learning means you make the learner change attitude towards something. It's not just writing, it's about a good handwriting. And at this particular point now at university level, when we teach educational psychology, we are then training you as teachers to acquire the right attitude as a person who makes change to occur among learners. Wewe ni mwalimu bora au wewe ni bora mwalimu? Are you just a teacher or you are a real teacher? So can you be able, through your own positive values, change the values that students hold? So that simply means learning understand that for change and for change to be relatively permanently observable, it must occur cognitively. What we are calling cognitive learning. It must occur affectively. What we are calling affective learning. It must occur psychomotor way. What we are calling psychomotor learning.
Stop presenting ikipotea hapa. Imepotea tena. Yeah, almost saving it. Next time tutatumia another two.
So we want to look at then cognitive learning in our group forums. We want to look at affective learning in our group forums. We want to look at psychomotor learning in our group forums. But before we do that, I will want to explain something about cognitive learning. Under cognitive learning, we have different skills that the learners must get. We have what we are calling recall. Are they able to remember? Comprehension. Are they able to comprehend what they are learning? We are looking at synthesis. Are they able to synthesize? Are they able to bring pieces, sieve the information, and put them together as a whole? Are they able to analyze? In other words, break this information and understand the small analysis, the small pieces of information. So we want to look at types of learning and to see that change has occurred in the cognition by the way the student responds to our questions when we set any exam or when we give an assignment. So you teach about Pythagoras theorem in mathematics. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. Then you show them how to calculate and why the hypotenuse must be C squared, the longer side of the triangle. At the end of the day, these students, first of all, must recall the formula. So we are looking at the remembering part, the cognition, the cognitive, how to recognize or how to remember. So they have learned that the formula of solving the area of a triangle, a right angled triangle, is this squared plus this squared is equal to this squared. So the ABC formula is remembered. Then, as a teacher, you go ahead and you substitute A, B, and C. Then you square the A, you square the B, you square the C. Then you now bring the formula A squared plus B squared is equal to C. And you bring in now the idea of if. If A is this and B is this, then C is this. So you are simply playing with the cognitive aspect of learning. Can the learners remember the formula? Can the learners apply the formula? Can the learners analyze different aspects of the formula? Can the learners synthesize and get square roots of this formula? If the learners can do it, then learning has taken place. Behavior has taken place. So as a teacher, you will have now scored in the cognitive aspect of learning. But we are not just robots. We are not just learning. We have a mind. We have emotions. And that is why we now bring in what we are calling affective learning, the emotional aspect of cognition.
Last time nilimsumbua.
The attitude, the value part of cognition. So, do the learners appreciate the relevance of the Pythagoras theorem? Do these mathematics learners appreciate that by knowing the basics of a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, it will lead them to become engineering students in future? Can they appreciate that knowledge in how to make a right angle and give the correct calculations will make them better architects as professionals? So you're now bringing in attitude. I just don't want to know about the Pythagoras theorem. I know the usefulness of Pythagoras theorem, and I know where it can lead me, especially in terms of my career. So that is now the value system. Are you just talking about English? The polite words, excuse me, please, teacher, may I come in? Please, teacher, may I go out? Thank you for what you have done to me. Are you just teaching the words, the etiquette aspect of language? Or are you also teaching them so that they can have a better attitude to those who are elders in society, to those who are seniors in society, so that there is something about just being polite in making a request so that you can be given whatever you are requesting for, because otherwise it would be looked at as rudeness. So when the learners learn the cognitive part, the technical part, they also now learn the value system part. So if you score an A in mathematics, and yet you cannot apply that calculus to building, for example, if you walk around this university, if you cannot appreciate those physics principles of flotation, if you cannot appreciate gravity in the way that these storied buildings have been constructed, then it simply means you only got the cognitive aspect, but you did not learn the skill aspect, the value aspect of why a storied building can hold 10,000 of us at a go. The sound waves. If you learned physics, chemistry, and you cannot appreciate why you are able to hear me without seeing me, then the affective part missed out. So what am I saying here? When you teach any course, even if it is at early childhood, the environment, the reading, literacy activities, social activities, let the learner first of all understand, then let the learner appreciate why you are making them understand. Why the 7 subjects? Why is mathematics and English compulsory for a university student to pass? That is the affective part. So remember to bring in why they are learning. So every day you introduce your lesson, it really motivates the learners. It motivates learning to take place when you tell them why they are learning. That is why I took a long time last week and told you why educational psychology is a professional course that is important for us. Then we now have the third type of learning, the psychomotor. From the word psych, the mind, then motor, the movement, the body movement, the manipulation of the body organisms, the fingers, the eyes, the mouth, the whole body, that manipulation of your body to perform a task is a type of learning that is very, very important. It does not matter what the subject is. So are you able to apply, to practice it in real life? So psych is the mind. Can it, what the mind knows, be able to be applied through your body movement? That is the psychomotor learning. And it comes out again through all our experiences. For example, after we have learned general educational psychology, I expect you to go to your Form 2 class or to your grade 8 class and be able to make them appreciate why they must learn agriculture. Go out of your way for every section. Then let them take that djembe, that hoe, and weed. There is nothing like online agriculture. There must be that capability of navigating in the soil. Can the learner test the soil pH, the acidity level of the soil? Can a geography student look at the moon and know that this is a solar eclipse? This is a partial eclipse. The other day, everyone in the whole country was mesmerized. I could see the media personalities displaying the moon there. Half of the moon was dark, half of it could be seen with some brightness. I expect that with our psychomotor, we are able to use our eyes, observe the moon, and say, this is partial eclipse of the moon. And not just that the moon will be black for 48 hours, no, or for 4 hours, no. A geographer using psychomotor should be able to observe. An English student looking at a complex sentence, a compound sentence, should be able to separate a simple sentence from a compound sentence from a complex sentence. When we have two clauses, one clause depending on another for functionality, then we are using a conjunction that would cause dependence. So that we are looking at a subordinate clause, a clause that is subordinate to a main clause. I can pass the exam only if I am supported. So you are able then to look at the sentences that are being said and manipulate the sentences and break them into two simple sentences. So that is now psychomotor. At home, common language, we now talk about even just preparing a meal. You have learned how to prepare meals through experience. That is learning. So I want us through this course to ensure that anytime we go to our classes, we should be able to apply the 3 trial types of learning in all our classes, and it is possible. It is possible. Ensure we have cognition, ensure we have the affective, ensure we have the psychomotor. So I will write because I realized when I give the task online, when I'm handling this, a few of us out on the instructions. So I will write down, send to our class representatives so that they can send to the group forum as a written task. I will also do the same for the branches of psychology. So don't post anything until I'll give a very brief task. I told you to make groups based on your subject combinations so that when we give a task, it is very easy for that group to come up with the correct and applicable answers of their areas. So for example, if I gave you a task on types of learning, I would say hypothesize. To hypothesize is to imagine a situation. Hypothesize a small subtopic in your subject of specialization and explain how you will ensure learners have learned cognitively, learners have learned affectively, learners have learned psychomotorly. There is no single area of learning where the three types of learning cannot be applied. In CRE or religion, there is the 10 commandments, the knowledge about them. Then there is the application of the 10 commandments in a situation that is very, very paradoxical or having a dilemma where you must apply the commandments with affection. Then there is the psychomotor, doing the application itself. How do you express the fact that you are now practicing one of the 10 commandments? So every topic, every learning area is applicable. So we can now be in our small groups and do any hypothetical case, and then we apply. So I will give you a group forum task on this one. That is why I have not given you the notes, but the notes are available. I want us to come up with the types or the task. Then we can use 3 or 4 of the best given examples and we use them to understand. And I don't want to use the word best. There is no subject combination that is assumed to be best. No. What will be the best is when you come up with the most applicable hypothetical or imaginary case. Then we can pick your examples and we can use them. And it can still be replicated in your end of semester assessment. So that when we are talking about an examination, we are not just recalling and remembering and even checking our neighbors' answers. No, we are looking at that exam as biology teachers.
Doc, we lost the internet. Huh?
Dr. Abiso. Lost the internet. Lost the internet. Yote. Tutatumia nimeona YouTube wamefika 800. I think umecall. No, umekuwa tumewasuport simu yako. Naona kwa tumewasuport simu yako. Kama tumetumia simu yako kwa support for calls tunawajibia network inapotea. Nijaribu tena nione. You can endelea next week. Acha jaribu. Let me try again.
OBS.
Sasa unajua wananiita niende defense.
Oh.
Sasa nilijua watasema nimeignore na niko na my students sanani.
So what can we do?
No, I just go back and explain to them.
Mm-hmm.
That my end. Sasa bado ikiwa connected bado itashika.
Yeah, najaribu kuconfigure nione. Jaribu kuconfigure nione. Sijui kama itapika. Hiyo ndio ubaya sasa ya nini? Ubaya ya nini? Ubaya ya OBS. OBS kijitoa inakuwa shida.
Umetoka kuingia.
Najaribu tu nione. Ndio ubaya OBS. OBS kishanitoa.
But nakusikia. Hadi kama inakusumbua tuache tu. Let me explain to them.
Yeah, just tell the class rep we shall resume next week.
I think we shall resume next week. We were starting our session on learning theories. We shall resume next week on our learning theories, but I will ensure I configure the e-learning portal, the e-learning forum. Then all the groups will sub.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
Kindly send me a text. Tell me your name and tell me which combination you are. I don't want to appear to be biased to only
Issue
one
yako ni nini?
class.
So, what's the problem? Sawa, lakini acha niwaambie. Just waambie tu class rep kwa
Yani kila class rep kwa kila course combination anitumie text ajitambulishe so that I can be relaying direct information to class rep.
Okay. Na ukilogin, hebu chukua simu yako login tuone. Login, chukua enda kwa eLearning. Yes, class imeisha. Let us continue next week. I think we have covered enough. Okay. Next class we are going to use a lighter. We shall use Google Meet next week. And I think that's yeah. Then I will share you to utakuwa una join a laptop Google Meet, alafu na simu na follow kwa YouTube. Sasa kwa YouTube you can see their comments. And also hata ukikuwa na unaweza ukareduce ka volume kako kidogo so that you can hear the echo of what you are teaching. So that you can monitor, so you can monitor whatever you are. So okay, stima tumetulet down. Yeah. Some minutes. It was 800, yeah. Tumelogin, what's the problem? System yote online, you can log from anywhere, any device. Sio lazima hiyo simu tu utumie hiyo simu. Sawa. Nasikia. Unafunza kwa psychology kule hesabu. Uko nayo uko lini hiyo calculations uko nayo lini? So next week una introduce. Lini? When? Which day of the week? Okay. So what we can do? Ndio inafika huku, but nimewambia let us yeah. So what we can do?
So tomorrow at 11.
So kesho, so it means every Wednesday I should prepare for hesabu.
Yeah. Kama nikifika mahali tu kama where I can just construct the graphs.
Okay.
Wapate hiyo normal curve hizo skills.
Okay.
Yeah, sababu sasa hao wako 21 na wengine hata hesabu walifanya kisiwa.
Okay.
Sasa lazima tu unless nataka
ni wangapi toto?
21.
Hawezi kufunza tu kwa class. Oh, ni wa sawa, shall find the best way. Sawa. Kama ni Wednesday we shall organize.
But wakikubali, nikiweka pressure wakubali then I will solve. Ama bila unasema YouTube nijirecord. Na nikijirecord nikicalculate the answer.
Yeah, sawa. We shall do it live. Yeah. Net to crash. ultimate class.
Next week on our learning theories, but I will ensure I consider the e-learning portal, the e-learning forum.